people who voted. Now, to put it in perspective, they say in an off-presidential year, they might have 200 people per day to cast their ballots. So it means there's been a lot of interesting things going on here. Listen to some of what some people had to say about why they're voting and how they voted. We got some sound from folks earlier. Take a listen.
I'm glad that it's over. I'm glad it's almost over. It's been crazy, you know, it's been chaotic. You know, the whole election thing started to seem like way early this year, but I did my part.
I'm happy that I'm voting. I'm happy to see so many people this early are voting. I think it's a wonderful thing.
One person, when asked what made him make his decision or when did he decide, he said he watched a bunch of ads yesterday and he made his decision yesterday to vote for Harris. Another person said to me that except for how he handled COVID, he thought former President Trump was a pretty good president and he voted for him. Anna?
Rahim Ellis, thank you so very much. Let's turn now to Yasmin Vasugian in Michigan, another key piece of that blue wall that Trump is trying to flip. Yasmin, good morning. Where do things stand and what can we expect with the vote count tonight?
Obviously, Michigan, an integral swing state here in this country when you're thinking about both candidates vying for the state of Michigan, right? Donald Trump finishing out his closing remarks yesterday evening in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Tim Walz was in Detroit. Kamala Harris was in Detroit 2 nights ago as well. I'm in a middle school, right? This is where folks are voting. Folks are lining up, getting their votes in early today on this historic, likely election day, right? I'm going to ask my photog, Sam, to swing around here because you got folks filing in there, right, figuring out their precincts, where they're going to put in their vote, and then obviously filling out their ballots, right? Integral, as I mentioned. We're looking at the numbers here when it comes to early voting. 44% of folks have already voted. That's registered active voters, 3.2 million people so far. I've been speaking to some voters outside this polling site here in Dearborn, Michigan, traditionally Arab American voters. Here's some of what they had to say, guys.
I think he's a good businessman, so if he runs the country as a business, we should do okay. And at the end of the day, it's just a face for the country, you know?
The momentum has shifted toward the voices that are going to carry us through and give women our voices back. I'm a physician, and I'm fighting for my patients. I'm fighting for the rights of my patients and their futures.
Me personally, I'm going Green Party.
Why is that?
Because I feel that we need a third party in the system. I feel like, you know, it's been too much of a two-party system for a while. I don't think the founding fathers wanted it that way, so maybe change it.
The three big major issues I've been hearing about from voters here, it is the war in Gaza. They're voting with that in mind. It is reproductive rights, as we heard from that last woman, the physician there. She's voting with that in mind. She actually voted for Kamala Harris this morning. And it's the economy. It's jobs as well. Number one issue for a lot of voters here in Michigan. Hoping to get some of those results out of Michigan, as I talked to the Secretary of State earlier today, sometime tomorrow, guys.
Yasmin Vasugian, thank you. Now let's check in with Antonia in North Carolina. A state Democrats have only won twice in the last 50 years. What's the scene there?
Good morning, Anna. Well, I am here in Raleigh, and there's been a steady stream of voters coming in all day. Tons of them lined up before the polls opened around 6:30 a.m. And look, people here are energized. Both parties are here to give people information, but from what I'm seeing, most voters are charging right ahead because they feel incredibly passionate, particularly Democrats in this area. I mean, this is the kind of metro area where they need to run up the numbers. This is the area with the most precincts, the most voters, the highest turnout historically. You need the Black community to come out for Harris. You need young voters, college-aged voters to come out. And in the ending period of early voting, they just started to see that. And now they're really hoping they see that final surge now on Election Day. The issues that are driving people, health care, abortion, criminal justice reform, and of course the economy. Take a listen to some of the conversations I've had today. What do you think is different this time around?
Actually, it's because, you know, I've seen like some of her like rallies. She actually cares about us, unlike that other person.
Voting for something that matters. It's just, especially because it's my first time ever voting, pretty nerve-wracking. But I'm also not somebody who's super into politics normally. So I made sure to do all of the research I needed to before I voted.
Ross, the last voter that you heard from right there, is a first-time voter, and the Democratic Party here in North Carolina has been incredibly aggressive with their ground game this time around, and they've really made a huge effort to get young people engaged, not just, frankly, with the presidential ticket, but all the way down. I mean, there's a gubernatorial race here that's really been in the headlines because of scandal rocking the Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson here. There's also a school superintendent race here that's galvanizing a lot of people. And so the energy is certainly here on the ground. And good news for anyone who's anxious, North Carolina's pretty good at getting their results in fast, so we may know a lot around 11 or so tonight.
Antonia Hilton, thank you very much. And joining us here in studio, MSNBC national political correspondent Steve Kornacki, and two co-hosts of MSNBC's The Weekend, former RNC chair Michael Steele and former Harris spokesperson Simone Sanders Townsend, along with former Republican congressman from Florida, David Jolly. So, Steve, the first results came in past midnight, right, at tiny Dixville Notch in New Hampshire, 3-3, 3 for Harris, 3 for Trump. What are you looking at, and what are you going to be focusing on when polls first close?
Yeah, I mean, fitting that we've already got some results, and it's still a tie, I guess, given the given how this is going. So, okay, the first poll closings, you see the countdown here. That's going to be in most of or some of Indiana and Kentucky. Obviously, we don't expect either state to be a swing state, well, to be a battleground. We'll see if there's any surprises or a couple counties in those states that might give us some kind of a clue, although they're usually very slow at counting in Indiana. So really, it is 7 o'clock Eastern. That is when the action is going to start. The first core battleground state, Georgia. Polls closed there, and I think this is key to keep in mind. If we think back to 2020, remember the weekend after the election, we were still waiting on a result in Georgia. It may be very different this time around. There's been a change in the state law, a change in the process, and what it essentially means is that in that first hour between 7 and 8 p.m., we expect, if all goes to plan, about 80% of all the votes cast in Georgia will be counted and known publicly in that first hour. The only thing that will be left after that that would come in over the next couple hours would be the people going out to Georgia, cast polls in Georgia today and casting votes in person today. The vast majority was done early, and that will be reported out in the first hour. A major, major clue could come early. 7:30, you just heard North Carolina polls closed then. Also expected to be a fairly quick counting state. The possibility, unless it's razor thin, which is also possible, of getting a little bit of clarity in these states early is very real tonight. 8 o'clock, you see a Michigan poll close with a star. Almost all of Michigan closes at 8. You'll see results. You will not get a call in Michigan guaranteed between 8 and 9, because at 9 o'clock, there are 4 counties in the fringes of the UP that close their polls. Then the whole state closes, and then we'll see where we are. But of course, we expect it to be longer than that in Michigan. Anyway, Pennsylvania, the big one, 8 o'clock. Polls are going to close there. Key thing to keep in mind, what's going to happen almost entirely in the state is they have a ton of vote by mail. Not as much as before, but a ton of it. All of it, or just about all of it, is going to be released first by the counties in Pennsylvania. So that means the Democrats, because they do so well with vote by mail, you can expect that in that 8 to 9 o'clock window or so, you're going to see the best numbers Democrats put up in Pennsylvania then. And the question is going to become, as the Election Day vote, the people going out to vote today, a more Republican group, as that gets added to the mix in Pennsylvania later in the night, what kind of a hole is Donald Trump in, and can he come out of that hole with the Election Day vote? We expect that sequence in Pennsylvania. It says 9 o'clock for Arizona. Okay, 9 o'clock Eastern, the polls close. Also, the state law, they must wait an hour after that, so 10 p.m. Eastern. And by the way, when it comes out in Arizona at 10 p.m., you're going to get about 2/3 of all the vote in the state at 10 p.m. It could be slower after that, but we will get a lot. Wisconsin, 9 o'clock. There could be a big development. Milwaukee usually reports out the rest of its vote in the wee morning hours. We're talking about like 100,000 votes we could be waiting on. Keep that in mind. Nevada, 10 p.m. But in Nevada, sometimes it could take a couple hours after that to even get some votes reported out. So bottom line, we have the potential this time around to have more clarity more quickly in this election than 2020, but the possibility we could be waiting in a state like Nevada, waiting in a state like Arizona for days looms as well.
Steve, I got to ask you perhaps the most important question for you today. What is your secret to what powers you through? You got a long night coming up, my friend.
I don't want to sound corny. It's the excitement. I mean, how long have we been talking about this? It seems like since the last election, what's going to happen? Everybody has confident prediction. We get to find out. And we get to find out. It's like all these little puzzle pieces, state by state, county by county, get put together. It is fascinating to me to watch that happen. And anybody out there who is as fascinated as me, come on, let's watch it together tonight.
It's going to be riding on the adrenaline. Steve Kornacki, thank you. It is an exciting, it is a historic moment. It's an unprecedented election. We've said all those words, and it's just the truth. Simone, you know, one of the hallmarks of this particular election has been the gender divide, right? You have Harris up big with women, Trump up with men. And I just want you to listen to what Trump said just last night about some very prominent Democratic women.
And Michelle hit me the other day. I was so nice to her. Out of respect, I was saying this. She hit me the other day. I was going to say to my people, am I allowed to hit her now? Mike Tyson, that great guy. Oh, he says, put Mike in the ring with Kamala. That would be interesting. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, she's an evil, sick, crazy bitch. Oh, no. It starts with a B, but I won't say it. I want to say it.
You also had J.D. Vance calling Kamala Harris trash.
I had never seen that clip. I had not. I did not know he said that. This is a man that is unwell and unsettled because he knows this race is close. And that, I'm so glad you all showed that, because I am someone that believes in, Michael and I, we talk about this all the time with Alicia on the weekend, that, you know, Donald Trump, there are many people that have not heard what he said. And some, you know, just like the folks, the voters in the clips that Yasmin and the other reporters that got from around the country, these people at the polls are saying, oh, well, Donald Trump's a good businessman. You know, oh, I don't like some of this, but I don't like some of the things, but I think he'd be good for the economy. I think he'd be good for the country. I don't know if they know that that's how he talks, that this is his closing argument. And you juxtapose that with Vice President Harris last night. And last night, her message was, it was a lot of her stump speech that we had heard before, but again, not everyone is as keyed in as we are, and it was hopeful. It was joyful. It talked about working for the American people. She asked people for their vote. I'm just disgusted by the clip and just very disheartened, but this race is going to be close. Even with those comments, this is a close race.
Yeah, and Michael, first of all, why do you think it is? And second of all, let's hear a little bit more from the Vice President. Yes, as we're talking about tone and differences, here's a little bit more from the Vice President last night in her closing message.
Ours is not a fight against something. It is a fight for something. America is ready for a fresh start. Ready for a new way forward where we see our fellow American not as an enemy, but as a neighbor. And we are ready for a president who knows that the true measure of a leader is not based on who you beat down, but based on who you lift up.
You know, this is the final message, but before that, there was a lot of focus on Donald Trump about his threat to democracy, the dangers, and so much more. Just wondering, what is it that in a campaign permeates with people? Is it the long 100 days, if you want to call it long? Is it that process which includes different phases, or is it the final message?
So first off, let me just go back to the whole thing with Steve. This is so exciting. I mean, it's a kind of, look, as a county, state, and national chairman, I love elections. So I'm like, and having a